Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend, Jim Stam. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Got to a game the other day. They actually won it, so I'm off to Schneid there. I'm 1-2 on the year. I'm hoping to improve that, and we'll pass along the curse to a couple other people we know that aren't doing so hot.
Nick! Also joining us today, Michael Castrignano from the 412 Double Play Podcast. Michael, welcome back, brother. I went ham last year and had you on like 2 or 3 times in rapid fire, and then not for far too long. So good to see you again, man.
Good to be back. I'm 0-1 at the park, so I only went to opening day, but 1-0. Went to a Curve game 2 weeks ago, so at least I'm.
Well, you got a better chance with the Curve lately, anyway, right? The way they're hitting
lately, yeah.
As many of you know, Jim is the world's #1 ambassador for the ballpark pass at PNC Park. That and Icy Light Mango.
It's true.
I thought you might want to tell people how you're handling your extra tickets this year, because I thought it was pretty cool, and this is as good a platform as any to talk about it, right?
Yeah, I think so. So we have the ballpark pass. I got it for me, my wife, my son. It's great because you get to go to whatever home games you want to that month. And I've got it. Well, the thing with that is it's a great plan until your son has ice hockey, deck hockey, and now baseball in 2 different leagues, and he's playing a lot. So there are nights and days we are simply not going to be able to use those ballpark passes. So the cool thing about the ballpark pass is you can accept the tickets and then forward them to people. And so I've got this idea that what I will do is there are some games that I cannot make it. I'm going to put it out on Twitter, let people know, hey, there's 3 ballpark passes. If you want them, I'll forward them to you. But there's a catch, right? There's always a catch. But this is a good catch. So all I'm going to ask is that if you take the 3 ballpark passes, I want you to hit up the guys at around the 412 and send them a small donation for their Christmas drive. And I don't care if it's $1, I don't care if it's $5, $10, whatever. And just give it to them. I'll send you the tickets. You can have them. And it's a win-win for everybody. So that's the deal. I will throw it out on Twitter. If you guys see it, retweet it. And so that's how I'm going to do it. I figure why not? Don't want to waste them, right?
Jim and his never-ending effort to make me look bad. This has nothing to do with the show. This is just Jim being kind. So, hey, good stuff, man. I thought it was worth talking about. Tonight's a magical moment for those of us dumb enough to publicly talk about the Pirates, guys. It's the NFL draft night, which means many of the most annoying fans on social media won't be back unless the Pirates make the playoffs. So we won't have to worry about it. It's a great time of year for sure. On top of that, a West Coast trip means a bunch of people will be asleep and complain tomorrow. It's the consolidation of what would have been 40 angry posts all during the game put into one angry morning dump post. It's the greatest thing ever. Jim, are you looking forward to this West Coast trip?
My sleep schedule's not, but I will say that you do get to find out who the really hardcore fans are, I think. Yeah. Or insane fans, because
or shift workers.
Or shift workers, yes. But it's funny because it's late at night. The tweets aren't that fast and furious, but there's enough of us out there that are still paying attention, and it's kind of unique. But with the draft coming up, as you mentioned, the NFL draft, boy, that does take away from the Pirates spotlight. And So yes, we don't have to deal with some of the stuff we deal with, I don't think.
It's up to them to earn it, though, Michael. I've already heard people talking about attendance, and I think that's silly, first of all. If you've lived in Pittsburgh for any length of time or watched the Pirates for any length of time, school year attendance during the week is never, ever, ever going to be good in April and May. It just isn't. So it's a little early to be worrying about that. Plus, the team's playing 500 ball. And while you can say that's an improvement, it's not good enough to start claiming it should be driving people to the ballpark, is it, Michael?
I think that when the warmer weather comes, that people are going to be going to the ballpark because it'll be something to do. That's just kind of how it is. Even in the 2014, 2015, even 2016 season, when they had like the contention window open, there weren't really people heavily going to games during the week. Like Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon games, those typically do a little bit better. But
right.
Yeah, this was a Thursday afternoon game against a division rival that people could see 2 or 3 more times this year. It's not something that I think they're going to be clamoring for. So
I mean, that's where I'm at, Jim. Nothing to be alarmed by yet, right? I mean, it's pretty typical. No. You're a person that tends to go to a lot of random midweek games, because I think it works out for you for one thing. And
right.
I mean, do you experience anything like different in the early season, regardless of whether they're good or bad? You've gone through both.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think the weather does play a bigger part in it than maybe most people even realize. And we haven't had great weather for some of these games so far. So it gets, it's a little chilly. Wind picks up a little. But honestly, I will tell you, going to games during the week, if you can do it, I like it. Like the park's not
Tuesdays are my favorite.
Yeah, so like park's not crowded. You kind of get some cool access maybe to some things because you're not fighting with a bunch of other people or kids or whatever to get whatever you're trying to get done. Shorter lines, go to the bathroom quicker. All these things are very important to me at this point in my life. So
you feel like Baker Mayfield at Progressive. Like you're walking around by yourself sometimes in certain areas. Like you walk up to a line to get a pretzel and you're kind of like, you feel like you're at a pit game. You're like, all right, go grab me a pretzel.
Right. So like, I think like those are the games to go to. I get it. Everybody likes to go whenever there's, whatever giveaways and whatever. But like for me, I'm perfectly happy going on a day where there's only going to be maybe 10,000 in the ballpark and you can kind of just relax and lounge a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, this was an awful homestand though, pretty bad performance against Boston. Really, they didn't even put out what you would consider to be an MLB lineup in a couple of those games, and they actually got some good pitching, and the hitting was just so bad they couldn't even overcome that. So I mean, Michael, I'm happy they bounced back and split the series with Milwaukee. You obviously don't want to just tank that, but something's got to change here soon, right?
Yeah. They were starting to look better. The whole thing early on, a lot of their success was being able to score runs with 2 outs. They've completely stopped being able to do that. Now they're getting guys on bases and they're just sitting there.
Yeah.
They're getting 1 out, 2 out, 3, the inning's over with guys on second and third. And the Red Sox, like Brian Bayo and Cutter Crawford, were really good. And then they had a bullpen game on Sunday and we only got 1 run. I think it was in the 9th inning too. So should have done better there. Brewers, I think Bart was saying in the pregame today, like you got to try to get to Peralta early so you can get to that bullpen. Brewers have like the second best bullpen in the National League.
I think the assumption was that they were tired from yesterday being a bullpen game, but they weren't. And
didn't matter.
Yeah,
we were lucky to get as many runs on Peralta as we did, but the bullpen is kind of a mess. When the offense shows up, the defense falls asleep. I don't know. It's just a mixed bag, and we're pretty much playing like a 500 team right now, or below 500, really.
And I think that's probably what we expected them to be. So I'm not devastated about it. We do have to take a break. We are going to talk about all of the things that you want to talk about. We're going to talk about Rowdy Tellez. We're going to talk about Jared Jones. We're going to talk about what's led to this recent dip. Is there anything they can do to get out of it? We will get to all of it. Be patient. I just wanted to start with a little bit of just nice, congenial talk for a minute before we just went right into sad.
It's for our sanity's sake.
It is.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Before we get into the Pirates, let's talk National Baseball real quick. What is up with power this year? Like, I know Mike Trout has 10, but last April, the Rays led all of baseball with 59 home runs in April. And right now, the leader, and there's still a few days left here, is the Orioles with 33. I mean, for perspective, the Pirates hit 33 in April last year. You know, they're not going to touch that this year.
No, not unless Joey Bart takes care of it.
Right, but something's up. I mean, I'm not saying like that I know what it is, but I've seen a lot of balls hit really hard that I thought were going to be gone that haven't been. For a lot of teams, not just the Pirates. So,
yeah,
something's up, and I'm pretty sure we're going to find out something's up.
Well, you know, with Major League Baseball owning Rawlings now, you just never know, right? I mean, who knows what they're doing? You know, the weather, every year pitchers just seem to be getting better and better. Like, guys, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's a combination of things. If once the weather warms up, you'll see it pick up. But there's definitely been balls that I usually, you know, I'd like to think that whenever I watch a ball off a bat, I can tell you most times whether it's gone. And I have been wrong more on that than normal. So, you know, I don't know. Michael, what do you think?
It's got to be something. Obviously, pitchers are better, but a lot of top pitchers are also injured coming into this year. So, like Spencer Strider, we expected him to be dominant. And what, he have 1 start, 2 starts? Maybe it is something that, like, we had that juice ball year in 19, and they're just kind of bringing it way back to earth before they inflate it again, and we get another Judge 60-plus home run year next year.
Yeah,
I agree. It definitely.
I don't want to go all
like
conspiracy theory on it, but it just feels like there's got to be. It just feels like there's got to be something there. You know what I mean? Like, it when you see the numbers that stark, it's a league-wide drop. It just is, and I don't think that hitters have gotten that much worse and pitchers have gotten that much better in that short a period of time. So that makes me think something's up.
Not enough to explain it. I do think pitchers are still advancing way quicker than batters are right now, and so I think it plays a small part. But how much of that? It can't be a ton, not in that short of a time frame. So, right. and we're seeing it worse here in Pittsburgh, just simply because no one's really, you know, putting any balls out of the park with any type of regularity.
Truth. And there's been a lot of close calls, but not enough, you know? So
right.
It's just weird. You're just not seeing the ball travel the way it typically has for a lot of guys. You know, even the one Reynolds hit Wednesday, that should have been a lot more gone than it was, I thought, the way he hit it. You know, like, that was one of those ones that I was like, man, that was only like 4 rows back. I thought he easily was like batter's eye level with that.
Yeah, and I think too, what will be interesting is who you start hearing complaining, right? Because the pitchers sure aren't. And so when we get into May, we'll see. We'll see if the hitters are starting to talk about it, because it seems to be a topic one way or the other every year.
Right. Well, hey, this leads right into the next topic. The offense has been putrid. Putrid. It's been hard to watch. It really has. And
man.
Andy Haynes has been done to death. Talked about it. I'm not gonna come up with anything new on Andy Haynes. I don't believe. I feel at this point like if they succeed, it'll be despite him, or they could have maybe done better without him. Like, I'm to that point. Okay, I've been done with this guy since before they hired him. So it's getting hard for me to keep bringing him up as a crutch. At some point, guys have to own their career and hit. I'm not seeing that. I think there's a lot of guys that are struggling a lot more than they really should be. And I wanted to focus a little bit on what might be reinforcements, because I don't think that we're all that set up for it. I think they have a lot to call on in the pitching department. It turns out they don't need that as bad as the hitting. So what can they do to spark this team a little bit? Let's talk about the options. What have they got ready to come up here? I mean, right now you've got Nick Gonzalez hitting. You got G1 Bay hitting in a very small sample size. You've got Leo Verpagero hitting, but showing some signs that he's got some issues still. Jake Lamb's hitting, but he's not on the 40, and he's basically just a skinny Tellez over his career in many ways.
Does he know where the first base bag is? That would be something I would look into the scouting report on that. I'm just saying.
I don't know.
Or if he knows to throw to the right bag. Sometimes that is also something you might want to look into.
And you got Grandal. So, I mean, we could look at this two ways. We can name off these guys that could come up, but you first have to know who you're going to send out, right? So let's talk about the worst offenders. Who are the guys that we think need sat, or we need to get more at bats versus them? Henry Davis, we can't avoid anymore.
Boy,
he's a rookie. He's a rookie, but man, he's really not performed. At this point, Jim, are you starting to drink the Kool-Aid that maybe he needs a little bit of a trip down to AAA to remember how to hit?
Yeah. It's looked really bad. Even when he is making contact, he's trying to pull everything. I mean, outside and away, off the plate, he's pulling it.
Even his hit Wednesday night was pulled on the ground. He got lucky. He got through a hole.
It got between short and third, and then he did it the next time up and grounded into a double play, because that's typically what's going to happen when you're approaching things like that. He's off to such a rocky start. Typically, I would say maybe just keep trying to give him better matchups, let Bart play a little bit more. I think a reset might be in order. Before it gets any further than it is. And I hate saying that on April 25th, because I think we are all three people that watch games and say, look, you can't make decisions too quickly.
Right.
It's a small sample size, but you have to protect him a little bit too, maybe like a young quarterback that's struggling. You can't just wear him down to nothing either.
I would agree, Michael. I mean, I think you and I talked about this way back in spring, because we had a whole what if session, you and I, about, well, what if he's not good? They have to play him, right? Maybe not. Maybe not now. Maybe we that.
That was when we had limited options,
right? So what would you do? Send him down?
So here's the thing: we've got Grandal potentially ready to come back soon, and he would just be a backup. Bart's hitting. If you're going to play the hot hand, Davis can go down. The only risk that you're playing with that, if Davis goes down to Indianapolis and he's still not hitting, he's still striking out at 30 +% of the time, then what do you do? Because then you just have a broken prospect and his confidence is even more shot than it was before.
I guess, like, for me, I'm pretty confident in Henry's ability to hit the baseball because I think it's a pretty natural thing for him most of the time. But I also think this is a kid that does get in his head. And he is completely overcompensating for not catching up with fastballs early on in the season. So now he's swung all the way to the other side of the pendulum where he's out in front of everything, including fastballs. He almost swung through a fastball before it ever got to him. And it was like 97 miles an hour yesterday. You know, that's getting way too out in front. I think he'll adjust. I think if they left him up here and played him, over time, he'd come back to the mean. I just feel like when you have a difficult situation like what's coming up with Grandal, well, Henry's made it real easy to take advantage of that situation and send him down. Let him get some at-bats down there. My problem is mostly, how do you go about getting him back? You know, like, how long do you keep him down there? Because what I don't want to do is waste 2024 not learning whether he can handle being a major league player or not. I'd like to have that question answered before we get to the off season. So I don't want to waste that time, but you are trying to win. So Jim, how do you walk the line?
There is no easy answer with this. There really is not. Like, you can go pros and cons with every scenario you want to walk through. You know, would it hurt them to give him this month of May?
The Mary Berry month of May, by the way.
Yeah, trying to, you know, pick their spots and let these changes that they're working with him at the plate, see if they take, because, you know, he is trying some different things. He's, you know, they've got his hands different. They've got him standing up a little bit more. Those things don't always just automatically happen either. I mean, you can do them in batting practice all you want, but when it gets to be a 1-2 count and a guy's throwing, you know, 98 miles per hour, how's that going to look?
Yeah.
So, man,
I would also say
tough,
maybe
guys.
we kind of said all along too, like, defensively, he looks okay, right? I don't think there's anything to panic about there defensively, but you're going to send him down. Hey, there are things to work on. Controlling the running game is not going well, you know, and I know the pitchers own a lot of that too, but Henry throws an awful lot of high and outside fastballs to second base. He needs to be throwing it a little bit more on the bag. He's beating runners. He's not beating them because he's throwing the tag up above their head. Like, you know, you have to work on things like that. I think he can get better at some things there. As far as like calling a game, there's obviously some comfort things that aren't coming through. I don't think Keller likes to throw to him. I don't think Martin Perez likes to throw to him. I don't think Aroldis Chapman likes to throw to him. So there's a few guys that, you know, at least he's not on the same page with. These are things they can work on, but I just don't know who the hell shows them anything in AAA. Grandal will be up here.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank God for Joey Bart. You know what I mean? Like, let's talk about that just real quick, because, you know, obviously he had some pedigree, but hadn't really done anything with it, and he's done nothing but stabilize that position for them. Offensively, defensively, he looks really good. No one's throwing anybody out, so I don't know what the hell, how they're going to fix that. But yeah, I mean, and how much do you let Joey Bart start playing a little bit more? It'd be hard not to say, you know, okay, let him play more. I think
he's played 4 of 6 now, so
yeah,
I think they are letting him play
He's
a little
been
bit
playing a lot lately.
Yeah,
right. It's hard not to.
So that's one underperformer, and I think we talked about really all they can do is call up Grandal. So there's that. That's a switcheroo that could take place. I don't know that you can expect Grandal to provide much of a punch offensively, though. I don't expect that. I mean, he will hit some home runs here and there, but I'm just not 100% sure how many opportunities he's going to get. You know, he's better left-handed than he is right-handed.
Yeah. And Grandal, you just don't know. I mean, is he even going to hold up with everything? You know, his age, the plantar fasciitis. How much could you even depend on him? You know, to do anything.
Let's give the people what they want, because Mark Lancaster wants us to start talking about Tellez. I can tell he's not the first one. It's time. Tellez is stunk. I mean, like, here's the thing though. Like, and I know Jim is getting caught on this on social media too. And Michael, I'm sure you are, because you try to be diplomatic. Rowdy Tellez is a guy that none of us wanted signed. None of us were thrilled when he was signed. None of us went out and tried to sell that it was a great signing. I think all we've ever said is, hey, here's what they see. Maybe it'll happen, right? That's the best we can possibly say. And we were nice a couple weeks ago, Jim, and said he's been better defensively than we thought he would be. I still feel that's true, even after watching him play today. But I don't know what you do here. Derek Shelton's given him every vote of confidence you could possibly give. He's putting him in the 3 or 4 hole. He's talked about how close he is. Oh, I think he's just getting a little fast through the ball. We think he's so close. They got Greg Brown doing it, you know, so they've told him, hey, pump up Rowdy, right? That he's going to be on Inside Pirates Baseball, the first episode. It's so great to hear that Sportsnet Pittsburgh is carrying on the tradition of having the first Inside Pirates Baseball feature a player that none of us want to see, so that we can watch the ads over and over and over again for a month. Well, it's a bad situation right now, Jim. We talked about the alternatives. Jake Lamb. What else do you do? Connor Joe plays.
Well, and you know, that's the thing. Like, everyone starts. Look, I've fully come around on Connor Joe. I love him as a ball player. But the problem with that is then you get right back into the same situation with him last year, which is you can play a Connor Joe too much, right? And then you're also taking away from the things he's really, really good at, which is we're seeing him be able to come off the bench, provide a pinch hit, come in, play a couple different positions. He's really good against certain types of pitching matchups, all those things. And then you start running him out there like he's an everyday player. I think you start to see him start to come back down to earth a little bit. So the less is more with a guy like Connor Joe.
He's J-Hay. I think he's J-Hay. And I say this specifically because he's just good enough that he forces you to think you need to try to start playing him every day, because he goes into these stretches where you're a fool if you don't. You just have to be prepared that cliff's going to come. And when it does, be prepared to steer quickly, or you're going to hit the iceberg. Like, it's coming. Like,
yeah,
there will come a point when he's exposed or tired, and you got to pull the ripcord. So I'm okay with him starting right now, but there's going to come a point when that's not good enough either, is what we're saying. So what do? First base, I'm tired of being a mess.
Michael, do you think where are you at with Tellez? You know, because we know how the fans are.
I don't know. So he's batting 183 right now. He has one extra base hit, and it was in the Marlins series. So that's how long ago that was.
March 31st. He has a home run. That's it. No doubles. Clearly no triples.
One of these days he'll hit one, and then he'll steal a base. He's got a 48 WRC plus, which is the worst of anyone currently on the team. Jason DeLay's worse, but he's IL. The defense, I agree with Gary. It's not as bad. It gets amplified because you have the big show of it today. But he's all right. He's actually been a plus defender by most metrics. But I don't know if you like go down and find a way to bring up Jake Lamb or Nick Gonzalez. Someone in the comments said move Triolo over there. But Triolo's bat is not great. I think he's batting like 220. but he's the best defender on the team not named Key Brian Hayes. And you move him all around. He can play second. He can play third. He's not bad at short. I think that like more of an issue is what do you do with the corner outfielders who aren't playing good outfield? Are either of them an option to, and I know that Gary's not going to agree with this, but are either of them an option to move to first base? Like Sawinski made a great catch against the wall yesterday and then missed a catch today. Reynolds really misread the ball that turned into, I think it was first and third, but it may have been a double. Like the outfield defense outside of Michael Taylor is just not great. And that kind of gets brushed under the rug because there's bigger problems with
and
the
he's
offense.
now hitting like Michael Taylor again, which, you know, we all said would happen, but you know, here it is. It's not like I'm against moving anybody to first base. In fact, I think that's kind of what I'm going to suggest here. The only guys I think that are earning a promotion right now, aside from Grandal, that I think is going to happen, Jake Lamb's hitting, but that requires a 40-man move. And to me, you can't do that unless you're done with Tellez. You have to basically say, nope, we picked the wrong one. We'll take this other guy. And Tellez just gets DFA'd, and up comes Jake Lamb to replace him and take his spot on the 40-man. I'm fine. Do it if that's what you want to do. I don't think they're ready for that, but fine. Have at it. I even made a joke in spring training. I thought Jake Lamb was playing better. Have at it. You know, I don't care.
Yeah.
This to me is not a long-term solution. So I don't care if it takes 50 guys this year to get through it. Make the changes. I don't care. Take a guy like Nick Gonzalez that's hitting though, and put him at first base. What's his path to come up here? If he comes up here and wins second base from Jarrett Triolo, for how long? Termar Johnson's coming. Chang is coming. Piguero's coming. Move somebody to first base. I don't care who the hell it is. Move somebody there. Be proactive about it.
Yeah, because the same thing you do with Connor Joe, then you do that same thing with Triolo. And what you start doing is you're trying to solve one problem, but then taking away some of the things that they're good at that help the team in other ways. So I think it's a wash when you start doing that. The biggest issue here is, and this is why I keep telling people,
he's not telling people anything.
I think,
you weren't telling people anything, Jim. You froze up.
You froze up.
Am I back?
Yeah,
You're
you
back
said
now.
you were going to tell us something, and then you just sat there. And Michael and I were like in suspense. We were like, this is going to be a hell of a nugget. The longer it went, I was like, oh my God, what's he going to say? Is he putting Merrill and you at first base?
He's sitting there like, let me tell you what they need to do. And I'm like,
Well,
it was
what?
classic.
It was great.
Okay.
Perfect timing.
I had to pay my bill, and so that's why they shut it off. All right, now I'm totally off my train of thought. The problem is they don't have anybody. They don't have a lot of options, and so people are saying DFA Tellez. If that's how you feel, great. All I'm trying to tell people is, and I don't agree with this, endorse it, whatever. I think they're going to give Rowdy every bit of rope that they can possibly give him, and I can see that going into May and maybe beyond it, unless it's because they're just going to hope and pray that he finally starts hitting the baseball.
That said, you know, if it is that bad into May, I could see them going with the Jake Lamb type situation. I mean, like, he has performed. He was brought in here as an NRI. It's no different. It's just a free agent signing. That's all. So I don't care if they make that switch. I just think right now they still think they're going to uncrack him. They still think they're going to figure it out what's going on with Rowdy. Hey, we didn't believe them with Bailey Falter, did we? And they wound up being right, at least early on in the season, didn't they? So it's hard for me to 100% slap them in the nose and tell them they're wrong. You know, we'll see. 20 games is not a lot. 25 games isn't a lot, you know?
Yeah.
If you start getting into like mid-May though, and he's still sitting on that one Easter home run, I'm sorry, that's
Yeah.
not enough. You got to do something.
Well,
And
and
the
what
team
makes no, go ahead, Mike.
just one nugget on this. The team is in a different position than they were in previous years. The $3 million that they paid to Rowdy, they're gonna throw it away if he's not performing and they're looking to contend. And they've got someone like Jake Lamb who is still killing it in AAA, or Seth Beer, comes up and is able to be productive. They're going to make those sacrifices because this is the start of that window that they're trying to open.
Yeah.
So why don't we ever get proactive about things like that, Jim? Like we complain for, I think, the better part of 35 years now, 40 years almost, that we don't have a first baseman.
Don't remind me.
Well, I'm not understanding why we never ever get proactive about that and move somebody there. The only guy I can think they've tried it with, Colin Moran, recently, from third base, and that was really because he wasn't good enough to be the third baseman on a team with Brian Hayes. So, and they doesn't have a first baseman, surprise. But like, I don't understand why you wouldn't move position players that you think have a worthy bat and start setting up some kind of a conveyor belt that gets them up here. They always make that decision, it seems, once they're up in the league. Then they're like, well, let's try you over at first base. Why didn't you do that in AAA? You saw this problem coming. Yeah, is Aaron Shackelford in the way? Like, do something about it. Like, I don't get it.
I totally agree. I think it's a thing in baseball too, right? Like, it's all of a sudden first base has become this like dumping ground a little bit, where you think you can kind of like piecemeal together some production out of a few guys, or he's a failed this, so now we're just going to place him at first base. And what I would say is, yeah, maybe it's a luxury, but good teams tend to still have really good guys at the corners that can do some damage. And the Pirates, just for whatever reason over the years, they've just never seemed to want to address it permanently. And I guess my question would be, and I haven't even looked at the numbers, but would Pirate fans be happy right now? I know Hoskins, he had a good day in the last game against the Brewers, but I don't know what his overall numbers are. So would people be complaining about him right now for 2 years, $34 million, that he's not doing enough? I don't know.
He'd be leading the team in home runs, and he's only hitting 200, so he sucks to half of the Pirates fans. And he doesn't really play first base, for another reason.
He has mostly been DHing, yeah.
Another reason why he wasn't a target, because you saw what happens when he does play first base the other day against the Pirates. Yeah, he's pretty bad. But they'd be happy that he hits home runs.
Yeah, lack of options even in the league. They could have done a few things better than they did than Tellez, I believe. But I don't know, man. It's been a problem as long as I've been alive, pretty much.
So, Michael, would a call up of any of these guys help? Bay, Gonzalez, Peguero, Lamb, Grindal?
I mean, short term. You're looking
Do
at
any of them excite you? Yeah.
I don't know. Gonzalez definitely has potential when he's able to hit. Like, I remember when he was drafted and coming up, everyone said he had a Mike Trout-like swing. Now we're seeing Mike Trout hit 10 home runs. So I'm like, yeah, I want that on my team playing in the infield. But it's just, they talked on the broadcast today about the Brewers, how back in the day they used to always bring up these first basemen and they were just already developed. And you have the Prince Fielders and I forget the names of the other guys. They were saying, we've never had that. Like, the last real first baseman that we had, I don't know, Derek Lee in 2011 was the last, and he wasn't someone we developed, but that was the last time I felt confident, and we had him for half a season in 2011.
Josh Bell gave us that glimmer of hope. I think that might be a position that,
also for half a season, but yeah.
Yeah, right. But that's really what Kevin Young to me might be the best that I grew up with. And not to take anything away from Kevin Young, but he should not be the guy that you say for 4 decades of baseball is probably the best one you can remember.
Shouldn't be on that list at all now. So I think what you're saying, Michael, is there's some maybes there, but there's nothing that I think like we should be there's no like Pete Crow Armstrongs or whatever.
There's not a game changer in AAA who's gonna join this offense and get it moving. Probably.
And let me just mention this. I see Wilbert, he mentioned, how did we not bring back Carlos Santana? Well, Carlos Santana is doing worse than Rowdy Tellez, if that's even humanly possible. So,
apparently is. You just said it's happening.
So he's rocking a 407 OPS and has no home runs. And is hitting 141.
That's gross.
So, and that's in 80 at bats. He's playing a lot.
Yeah. Let's take another quick break here. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about Mitch Keller. All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network.
I really like that intro, by the way.
That's
pretty cool from our friends at Yins. Yeah,
it goes hard.
We'll talk about them a little bit more when we do Call Your Shot, which is what they sponsor. Mitch Keller. I think I want to call this segment Mitch Keller. He is what he is. And what I mean by that is 5 years, $77 million is a number 3 or 4 pitcher in this league, my friends. And I know as a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, you thought they were signing the ace of the future, but you are watching the aces of the future come up this year in Jared Jones and Paul Skeens and potentially other guys we'll touch on a little bit later that are going to come from behind. That's where you're going to get that super top of the rotation type guy. Mitch Keller is a stabilizing force. He's a guy that's going to eat 175 to 200 innings and have an ERA of 3.75 to 4.25 and probably slot in a 3 or 4 spot. And he's going to give you an all-star season here and there. And he's going to give you a not so great season here and there. That's way better than trying to patchwork it together every year. That's why you sign a guy like Mitch Keller. You're getting what they paid for.
Yeah. What was today? 37 consecutive starts going 5+ innings?
Yep.
I heard that and it blew me away. Quite honestly.
It's consistency.
That's what you're paying for.
It's consistency.
That is
exactly innings, the health. Even the velocity coming down is a 100% purposeful effort from him to stay healthy and deliver those innings. It really is.
37 straight starts of 5+ innings pitched. First of all, you can't stink in overall and do that. Secondly, would we all like to see him pitching just a little bit better? Absolutely. Did he have his best stuff in this last start against the Brewers? Nope. But he probably deserved a little bit better than he got from his team, and he still found a way to get through 5. So you're paying for those innings. You're paying for that durability, and he's providing that for you. So it's always going to be the battle here in a town like Pittsburgh when anybody is paid anything. You're under a microscope more than others, fair or not.
Right. Michael, this is, not the way you want him to perform today. If this is how he performed every day, you'd have a right to think that they screwed up. but he's got good stuff, and he will pitch well. He'll just pitch like this sometimes too. That's the difference between a top of the rotation guy and a middle of the rotation guy.
Which is fine. And like you said, 5 years, 77 million. That's about what you'd expect for that. He's got a 5.14 ERA right now, 1.49 WHIP. He's better than those numbers. He ran into some trouble. His defense didn't really do him any favors. And he got into trouble, I think it was the third inning when he walked two guys. And then he came back and was just like getting whiffs like crazy. He got whiffs on the next like 6 strikes that he threw. So it's something that he's going to work through. He maybe is seeing what the other guys like Jared Jones and Jared Jones like Bailey Falter are doing and saying, hey, I should be doing that stuff too. And he's fine as like a 3 or even a 4 starter, especially when you've got Jones and Skeens coming up at some point. Like Keller's just going to eat innings, and the day after a bullpen game, that's kind of what you need him to do.
Right. I love the strategy of signing a guy affordably that's going to kind of anchor that rotation and doesn't have to lead it, but he's capable of leading it. So he can, on occasion, step up and have one of those games. He can be your stopper. He can be the guy that makes it okay that Jones got hurt. He can be the guy that steps in and doesn't lose a step when everybody else is falling apart. That's what you sign a guy like that for, Jim. I don't know. I just think people are ready to jump off of the boat on a guy that literally just got extended. It was still a good move. Just because you see something shinier that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes does not mean you forget that nice dull piece of very usable utility.
Old, reliable in the middle there. So, I mean, look, this is what I will ask people. Do you think that there's any team in Major League Baseball besides the Oakland A's / Las Vegas A's, whatever's going on there?
Sacramento,
I don't know. That wouldn't take Mitch Keller and take that deal with him. Yeah, they absolutely would. There's very few teams that would not take that, and that wouldn't be because they don't believe in him. They may have payroll things going on where they don't want to take it on. But other than that, and then we do get into, and I know we're going to get into this here shortly, which is the Jones effect, and now we're going to have soon the Skeens effect, which is boy, that's sexy. That is a sexy, those are sexy dudes to look at.
Well, let's talk about Jared Jones then, Jim. Let's talk about him. I mean, bold statement time. This is how I'll start. Every season that Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, and Mitch Keller are healthy together, this Pirates baseball team will be a contender.
Whoa.
I don't think that's crazy to say. So I think it's crazy to expect it'll happen that they'll be healthy together for like 6 years, but should they be, I think you have a contender every year. That's a rotation that can win. So, I mean, what have you seen from Jones? What do you think we can see from Paul Skeens? Let's not guess about when he's coming. Let's instead guess about who the hell cracks to give him a spot.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Jones, aren't we all out of superlatives at this point from what we are seeing?
Baseball's almost out of like early career records that he can steal, though.
Okay. Can I say one thing? Maybe, and
you
this
say 12 things. It's your show.
Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna say it. If I could make one slight criticism of Jared Jones, and this is so nitpicky, is I almost think he's in the strike zone a little too much for my liking. So, and that's where he gets nicked a little bit on some of those home runs. So what I would say is like that, and that is being so super picky. So other than that, he's been unbelievably spectacular.
Michael, you made an awesome, noticeable face when he said that. So what were your thoughts?
I'm going to disagree because the biggest issue with Jones coming up through the minor leagues, and one reason why a lot of us fans who followed him were concerned that he'd end up being a relief pitcher, is that he'd have a tendency to get a bit wild if he wasn't going in the strike zone. If he'd get behind in counts, he'd try to overcompensate and either give up a big hit or completely miss the zone. I love that he's staying in the zone and saying, hey, I'm going to throw 98, 99, 100 at the top of the zone. Give it your best shot. You're not going to hit it. And they're not. I posted something today on X about Freddie Peralta was the only qualified starting pitcher in baseball who has a better strikeout minus walk rate than Jones. And after today, I think Jones might be a bit higher because
well, then Tellez is absolved. Today.
Right, there you go.
So that makes me think though, because I remember back to that time, Michael, when watching him in the minors, I had those same concerns about him being, a reliever at the end of the day. They can't possibly have expected him this early, can they?
I don't know. He improved each year of the minors. 2021 low A, 4.64 ERA, 66 innings. 22 high A, 4.62. 122.2 innings, a little bit better ERA, a lot more innings. And then last year between AA and AAA, 3.85 ERA, 126.1 innings. Like he improved every year, but it was a big drop. 29 innings so far, 2.79 ERA, 0.828 WHIP. All of these are the best of his career. K per 9 of 12.1, walk per 9 of 1.2. I mean, those are both the best in baseball currently.
I mean, for comparison, Jim, this would be like Bubba Chandler coming north from spring next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
there's no way that they knew that this was coming.
Well, I'm kind of saying like we're giving them credit for the rotation being good and like Bailey Falter and everything, and good for you identifying that Bailey Falter would be good. And but I just will go to the grave not believing that they thought Jared Jones was going to come out of spring and come north with this team this year and do what he's doing.
You can't predict this.
No.
Like the Braves couldn't have predicted Strider being as good as he is.
It got to the point where you started to believe the Braves could predict anything. They were calling up guys from AA and having them look like Hank Aaron.
That's true.
I mean,
you tend to trust them a little bit more though, than organizations like the Pirates. I think they are just privately they have to be somewhat shocked. To the point where I even posed the question. I wondered if they would have if he is this. My goodness, you would protect him as much as you did Paul Skeens.
Let me tell you what it does to this team. They had a cute idea that they were going to compete this year, right? They thought, yeah, we'll compete this year because they thought they'd be about a 500 team. That's going to be competing this year. It will be. Just, it will be. Sometime September, if you're around 500, you're going to be in it. Okay?
Yeah, you probably will be.
Right. So they'll be right there. They can't have expected that Jared Jones is going to come up and do this. I know they expected Paul Skeens would at some point. But now here, they're going to be sitting on both of these guys, health permitting, of course, come the All-Star break. And if they're both going with Mitch Keller, I mean, I'm telling you, the bats are going to warm up at some point a little bit, at least enough to be supported by that kind of pitching. That's going to change an awful lot of urgency, isn't it? Because they know they can't afford to waste one single year with those two. If there's ever been a time for this team to go in and do whatever the hell it is they're going to do and try, now will be the time. As soon as those guys are together, you have to. You owe it to them. You got that lucky, you better do it.
Well, if not then when? You know what I mean? Like and like you said, you know guarantees that they're going to be healthy all at the same time. So when you do have that from the jump, better get serious about it on some level, because, and that's why, with some of this pitching that they do have in the minors, I know people want to hold on to all of it, but you're setting yourself up for failure if you're not willing to trade off some surplus to get better in other areas, maybe on the offensive side of things.
Well, let's talk about some of them guys that are going to get sold off.
See how I do that, Gary?
Because we're going to do call your shot, and we're going to pretend we're excited about call-ups, but some of these guys could be trade bait too. So. All right, Call Your Shot is brought to you by our partners over at shopkings.com. One brand to rep all the black and gold. This week, our Call Your Shot is from our friend Seth Johnson on X. Seth, follow Shop Yins with 2 Z's on X or Facebook. Tell Taylor you were this week's Call Your Shot on Pirates Fan Forum for exclusive discounts on all their great stuff. Here's his question. Jaron Jones has been impressive, and Skeens seems to be well on his way to pushing for an MLB debut. Who is poised to make a push aside from Skeens? These young pitchers have me fired up. And me fired up too. So, I mean, I got excited actually going back and kind of looking, because I haven't been paying much attention to what's been going on in the minors, except for checking out like some of the top level guys, right? Michael, you're probably more well versed in this than I am. I would say, just looking at it on the surface, I really have 2 guys, I think.
Well, you mentioned him already, Bubba Chandler. When I went to see the Altoona Curve game, he pitched 5 innings and he gave up 0 hits. He walked the first 2 batters, and then he was just lights out after that. He's got some crazy good stuff. He's someone who could, now that he's moved strictly to pitching full time, because when they drafted him, they were like, we can have a Shohei guy. And maybe they could have, but it would have taken a lot longer. It just wasn't happening. He's got elite stuff. You mentioned, could be the guy coming out of spring training next year, joining the team. It very well could be, because he's got great stuff.
He's hitting triple digits too. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He isn't yet this year that I saw in the start, but he was getting to 96, 97 pretty easily.
I saw that he did hit triple digits this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the thing, him like Skeens, when he throws the ball and he's hitting like 101, 102, there's not that kind of aggressive force to it. It's just like how you and I would throw like 20 miles an hour. Maybe for me, like 15 miles an hour. I don't know. But we just have a surplus of pitchers. Anthony Solomito is a really fun one with a funky delivery. So he has a super high floor, because even though he's got that funky delivery, he's got great control. And then another fun one I'll mention before I let you go off, Hunter Barco. I think he's still down in Bradenton, but he was a 2nd-round draft pick out of Florida, I think 2 years ago. Tommy John surgery, would have otherwise been a 1st-rounder. He was a steal. Sky's the limit for him. He could be a 1 or 2 in a rotation in like 2 years.
Totally agree. I like Bubba Chandler, like you said, Anthony Solomito. I think if they decide to make him a bullpen option, which I could see because he's on the 40-man, I could see Braxton Ashcraft flying to this league this year. Maybe even as just late season help in the pen. It might not even be a full-on, you're not going to be a starter anymore type thing. But I think he's a guy that could help pretty quickly. I also think Priester's going to get a little bit of a run here. I mean, I think they owe it to him. He's a 1st-round pick. He has worked hard on everything they've told him to work hard on. I think he's going to get a little bit of a run. AAA is not going to do him much more, either. So at some point they've kind of got to poop or get off the pot. And I would say Sean Sullivan, another guy that I like a lot as far as somebody that could come up and at some point. Michael Kennedy, I like him a lot. I think he's young, but I really like his stuff. I haven't liked Po Yu Chen. I know a lot of people have talked about him, but I just haven't seen it yet. It almost seems a little too soft tossy with not enough finesse so far. But hey, Bailey Falter worked out. Jim, anybody that you've been paying any attention to?
Well, I just the one guy that I keep coming back to too is like, isn't it great to have someone like Burrows sitting there that is just doing his thing. He's rehabbing. He was so close, wasn't he, guys? Like so close to
Yeah.
helping. And it speaks to some of the depth on the pitching side that all we would have heard before this was Burrows. What's going on with Burrows? What's going on with Burrows? Where is he at in this? People forget about him. He can still be a very good pitcher. Yes, he's had Tommy John. Who hasn't? You know what I mean? Like, so I just think that like he's somebody that I still look at and think he was almost there anyway. I really think he's somebody that we still need to, keep an eye on. The younger guys, do I like them? Yes. But there's so much that has to happen, including that health, to get anywhere. So I much more pay attention to the guys that are closer, like the Chandlers. And I mean, even Solometo, I don't think is that far away. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'd agree. But hey, great question though, Seth. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed that look at the minor league system. I don't do it often enough. It's been a struggle this year for me to do that. Like, as the team is kind of a little bit more of a serious entity, I have to look at them a lot more than I looked at the minors the way I have over the last few years. So it does change things. Michael and I were talking about that a little bit over at the site. Like, we kind of need somebody that can help us with prospects because we're too busy looking at the major league team to be, you know, constantly watching that. I do watch some games here and there, and I'll focus on players that I'm really interested in. But man, you got to go to another source if you want like true in-depth minor league stuff, at least from this show. I can't do that. Craig over at Bucks in the Basement does a good minor league show. Anthony Murphy's good source.
Bucks on Deck, yep.
Michael's even done some good stuff on his show, having minor league representatives on to talk about some stuff. So it's just hard to get your arms around that whole system and pretend you're doing it justice.
No, you cannot. I mean, you pay attention to that daily, just like we do things with the Pirates. So you know what I mean? Like, I always point people in those directions because I'm sure not going to BS my way through it.
I mean, here, Mark Lancaster wants us to go out with a bang here. Farm has an abundance of arms. Do you think they'd consider trading Keller for a cleanup hitter? My question to you, Mark, would be, what team with a cleanup hitter is trading for a 3 or 4 starter? You know, I don't think that teams that would be trading for a guy like that are typically in a position to give you what you think you want for him. You know, those matches are really hard. And like, I just kind of got done talking about why I think you need to have a player like Keller around. So I personally wouldn't even consider that. I think they have a lot of younger guys, unfortunately, as much as I do believe in like Hunter Barco, for instance. That's a name you're going to hear a ton if they want to go and acquire major league talent, because it's going to be coming from a team that doesn't think they're in it. So they're not looking for something back that they're going to use right now to be in it. They want it later and cheaper. They want to catch lightning in a bottle, just like the Pirates have been doing for the last few years.
Yeah.
You know, relatively unsuccessfully.
And the problem really is too, like, there's just nobody right now that you can sit in the middle of the lineup and expect anything consistent from. So everything is magnified, right? If Rowdy Tellez was your number 7 or 8 hitter in lineup because everyone else was doing well, I think some of that heat would be off. But there's just really not a lot of answers when you get into like that heart of the lineup. So whether it's cleanup hitter, 5 hitter, whatever, 6 hitter even, somebody's got to be doing something in that general region, or it's going to look like this.
And Wilbert Matthews says, will we see Marco Gonzalez again anytime soon? They claim that it's just rest and surgery is not something they're talking about right now. Marco's going to be a question mark all season long. It's very likely he'll be back in a month and starting again, and it's just as likely that he'll never throw another pitch as a Pittsburgh Pirate. I think I'd hate to tell you one way or another. I can tell you right now they're talking like, yes, he'll be back. But that could change once he starts throwing and feels something again, right? I mean, so until he's back, it's really hard to say. All I can say is they're speaking positively about it right now. And who knows, by the time he does, there may not be a place for him to start. I mean, if Baylor falters throwing like this, you're not going to take him out of the rotation, and Keller's not going anywhere, and Perez isn't going anywhere unless he gets hurt, and Skeens and Jones. I mean, do the math yourself. So,
and really with a guy like Marco, with his history, you have to just, whatever you think is precautionary, you want to almost double it, right? You just cannot. Erring on the side of caution is understating what they're going to do with him, because they have to, and then they'll see where they're at.
And I would think, Michael, last thing I want to bring up before we go, they're going on this West Coast trip. Derek Shelton made a point to talk about how tired the bullpen was about 3 or 4 times today in his post game. Do you see them making a quick swap for somebody like Carmen Majinski, or I mean, I guess you could go back to Hernandez maybe. You see anything like that to kind of freshen up a little bit?
I think they kind of have to, because they had to blow their bullpen and try to give the rotation a bump day. They've kind of kneecapped themselves as a result. I know the Brewers did it too, so it kind of was an even playing field for the game, but you can't intentionally wear down your bullpen. They're going to need to swap somebody out. I don't know if it's going to be, if they're going to set Ryder Ryan down. He pitched 1.2 innings today. He seems like the most likely candidate. I don't know that they bring up Hernandez. It probably would be Majinski.
What's he look like in the minors, by the way? I haven't seen anything.
He's got long hair. I think a beard.
Name nobody can pronounce.
You're gonna have to give me a second so I can find his stats. But
no, I honestly, other than health wise, I haven't looked. So my hope is that he has looked just as good as he did before.
I know Josh from Bridge to October will probably want Eric Lauer to be brought up because he's been really good early on. He has too. He's really been good, and he's not on the 40 man. So
Majinski 8 innings, 3.38 ERA.
Okay.
6 strikeouts to 4 walks. So I mean, which walks were an issue for him when he was a starter in the minors. That's the reason why he went to the bullpen.
Yeah. You could see them maybe doing something to freshen up that bullpen just a little bit. I could see it. It feels to me like they're kind of starting to pay the price, I think, for wanting to avoid Rowanzi Contreras a lot. And I know they used him twice in a row here the last couple days. I think that was kind of a test, because that's the last step to being fully transitioned into being a bullpen guy, is to go back-to-back days. So he finally does it. And I don't know if he's done enough for me to feel like they can keep carrying that spot for that much longer. I think the dream of starting is done. I think the dream that he's a back-end bullpen guy should be done. And I don't know if I want to have a guy that I just have to avoid when I have a lot of decent options at the position. I think I might want to start playing some of my better choices. But like we just talked about Eric Lauer. That might be his hat. You know what I mean?
You know, I look at Rowanzi and I think when I watch him, and especially now that the velocity is back up a little bit, he just looks like a guy to me. I hate to say that, like just a guy, you know, and his control's still not very good. and then he gets in trouble because he has to come back across the plate, and then he's really in trouble. Gary, I agree with you. I mean, is that a guy you can keep on? So he can pitch in games that get out of hand?
That's what Ortiz is too. We got two of them.
But at least with Ortiz, you can still see a little something,
and you
right?
can still send him down.
Yeah. I hate to say it. To me, he looks like a guy.
I think they'll give him a little bit more time, but I don't know. I don't think it's indefinite. So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that. Maybe I was overreacting to it a little bit. I just looked at his numbers the other day. I wanted to give it a month and kind of like take a look and see what's actually happening. In 9 innings, it just didn't look good. And, he's piled on since then the last couple of days. But I don't know, man. I just feels to me like at some point they're going to have to do something.
Michael, what would you do with him real quick? Well, I thought it was weird that they pitched him today. They kind of ran out of arms and didn't go to Bednar in the 9th. But he's had 9 appearances and given up runs in 3 of them. In 2 of those, I think like one was 2 runs, one was 3 runs. So that kind of inflates his ERA. But pretty much every time he's in, he's getting base runners on and putting himself at risk.
Yeah.
I don't know.
His whip's up around 117, I think.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah,
I hated what they did. I hated going to the bullpen game the other day. I think the bullpen's been struggling. That's going to tax the bullpen. I hope it's worth it, whatever they did with Quinn Priester. That's what this was about, was getting him an extra day of training in the bullpen to work on something, pushing his start back to supposedly tomorrow. And I hope it's worth it, because I don't think that you need to hurt the bullpen. Like, Josh Fleming's been cruising in that bullpen, and now you go ahead and throw him in as an opener. Let's go ahead and do that. Why would you do that? Why would you mess with a guy that's got a good thing going in a certain spot? I don't understand that thought process. And I don't understand getting Ortiz out of something that's been working for him. Coming into those middle to late innings and like getting a couple strikeouts here and there, working with a clean slate. Now you're going to bring him in with a mess? He hasn't done that. He hasn't done it well in his entire career. So I got frustrated by a couple things, and it was all surrounded about going with a bullpen game, especially when I'm sitting on a transformative player that could be up here. Don't sell me that crap when you've got real players.
Yep. They got some decisions that are going to be coming up here real soon. We got the catcher position, right? Who knows we've got these spots about what they're going to do in the bullpen. You got to make at some point you got to make a decision on Roanzi. There's some things that they're running out of time with, either by wanting to compete or guys just not showing enough to stay.
Yep. Hey, frustrating month, but they're sitting at 500. It isn't the end of the world. Let's go out to the West Coast and take advantage of that. Go Steelers! Make some good picks tonight.
Omar Khan is the only GM / management in Pittsburgh that nobody wants to fire. So at least before tonight.
I intentionally haven't paid any attention, because what I feel goes on at the NFL draft is people convince themselves of what they want before it, and they're pissed either way when they don't get it. And then they've already decided, I don't like that guy. And it takes 6 weeks for them to come around on it. I don't want to play that game. I just want to watch football. I don't know. Yep. That's one sport I'm checking out entirely. I don't want to deal with any of the off-season crap. I just show up and watch. So that's what I'm going to try to do this year.
It's not my thing to get super into it, but I will watch tonight because obviously I want to see who they get.
All right, good stuff. Hey, everybody, check out Michael's show if you don't already. 412 Double Play Podcast. You can find it anywhere that you find this show. If you find this one, you're smart enough to find that one. Check it out. Follow Michael on X at 412 _ Double Play. Is that right? Why don't you say
it? 412 Double Play.
Sorry.
No worries.
Go. Follow Jim at wherever Jim's at and do all the stuff that happens on X.
Who knows?
Follow me and all the stuff I do and all the overwork that I do. And let's go, Bucks. Let's have a better week this week. We need to have a positive show next week because I'm going to go nuts.
Let's go, Bucks!
Yeah, buddy. All right, see you, everybody.